The movie begins in 1950, high above the Balkan Mountains. A man named Anatol, who sells weapons, is flying in his private plane. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise. When he turns around, his assistant explodes, blowing a hole in the side of the plane. The plane starts to fall, so Anatol runs to the cockpit and gives the pilot some instructions. But when one of the engines catches fire, the pilot panics. He yells at Anatol, saying he warned him not to fly today. He threatens to report him if they survive. Anatol responds by firing the pilot on the spot and ejecting his seat. Then, Anatol takes control of the plane. Soon after, the plane crashes into a cornfield. News outlets report that Anatol is dead. His soul appears in the afterlife, sitting beside his grandmother, who doesn't even recognize him. A heavenly court argues over whether he should go to heaven. Suddenly, Anatol wakes up in the wreckage. He's badly hurt, but still alive. He walks through the cornfield and stumbles into a live TV interview with the pilot. Now the whole world knows Anatol survived, and the newspapers must change their headlines. Back at his mansion, a team of nurses takes care of him. Meanwhile, a secret group led by a man named Excalibur talks about Anatol. He's wanted for crimes like tax evasion, bribery, and cheating people. They all agree it's time to bring him down. When Anatol feels better, he meets with his daughter Liesel, who is now a nun. He tells her she will inherit everything he owns, not his 9 biological sons. Anatol has always ignored his own kids and instead adopted orphan boys, who are now watching quietly from the balcony. Liesel hasn't seen her father in 6 years, so she's suspicious of his sudden decision. Anatol explains that if his enemies succeed in killing him, he wants her to avenge him. He then shows her a set of mysterious boxes, his latest and most important project, called the Phoenician scheme. Liesel interrupts his explanation to ask about her mother, having heard rumors that Anatol killed her. Some even say he murdered all his wives. Anatol denies everything and claims he never killed anyone. He insists he truly cared for Liesel's mother. But this doesn't explain why he left Liesel at a convent when she was only 5. Ignoring her concerns, Anatol continues explaining what's inside the boxes. Plans for a dam, a canal, a tunnel, a massive labor force, and deals with powerful barons in shipping, mining, and railroads. He also has agreements with titans in banking, real estate, and the black market. His goal is to take over industries in Phoenicia using slave labor. Suddenly, one of the boys shoots a flaming arrow, which lands on a box. The butler quickly puts out the fire. Anatol leaves to deal with his unruly sons. Liesel then notices her father's new assistant Bjorn nearby, greeting her. When Anatol returns, Liesel asks what's inside the last box. He tells her it's the gap and says they'll talk about it later. He wants Liesel to leave the church and join his mission, but she remains hesitant. Later, they have lunch with Bjorn, and Anatol puts him through a polygraph test to check if he's an undercover spy. Over the next few days, Anatol continues unpacking his contraband, while Liesel examines the contents of the boxes. She's disturbed by how unethical and horrifying the plan is. But she also wonders if going along with it could help her use the fortune for good. Bjorn begins tutoring the boys, and Liesel notices that none of them are receiving real affection. One morning, Anatol tells Liesel that her mother didn't die by suicide as the official ruling claimed. He believes she was murdered, and suspects his half-brother Nubar. Though they hate each other, the brothers still do business together, and Nubar is involved in one of the box projects. Liesel decides to get close to her uncle to bring him to justice. She agrees to sign her father's deal and help him with the plan. Meanwhile, Excalibur gives a presentation about the bashable rivet, used in most construction projects. It normally sells 10 for a nickel, but he plans to raise the price sharply to sabotage Anatol's operations. In the middle of the night, Anatol hears about the market manipulation and rushes to wake up Liesel. They need to act fast. Prices for rivets and all construction materials are skyrocketing. Anatol realizes this is sabotage and announces they're leaving on his private jet. He hires 2 arsonists to burn down the house if they need to collect insurance. They begin a journey to visit every partner in the plan to renegotiate the deals. Excalibur tells his board that Anatol is on the move. He's also learned that multiple assassination attempts have left Anatol with severe head trauma. During the flight, Liesel notices they're carrying a strange box, and Anatol admits it contains hand grenades. When she asks if he's used them before, he refuses to answer. He then gives Bjorn another polygraph test and hands him a bag filled with cash. Liesel and Bjorn grow closer. He admits he doesn't believe in God and calls her lovely. Just before landing, Anatole casually mentions a bomb from the last time, which scares Liesel into praying. They arrive at a mountain where a tunnel is being built for a new railway. As they watch the project, Anatole tells Liesel that he never lost interest in her. In fact, his people have been spying on her and sending him reports about her life. Suddenly, assassins arrive on camels. Anatole tells the driver to get the grenades from the car, while Liesel reveals she has a knife. But the driver is immediately shot. Before the rest of them can be attacked, Prince Farouk and his bodyguard arrive and open fire, scaring the assassins away. Farouk compliments Liesel and says it's a shame she's a nun. He gives her a fancy knife as a gift. In return, Anatole gives him a grenade. Later, they explore the tunnel, which begins shaking. Liesel is worried because it's still under construction, but Anatole tells her not to worry. Both Farouk and Bjorn offer to hold her hand, but she turns them down. At the end of the tunnel, they find a group of workers and the financier brothers, Leland and Reagan. They're angry because Anatole has changed their contract to increase their financial contribution to the project. After an argument that leads nowhere, Anatole proposes to settle the dispute with a basketball game. The brothers will play against Anatole and Farouk, who has never played before. While they wait, Bjorn convinces Liesel to try alcohol for the first time and uses the moment to continue flirting with her. The brothers keep mocking Farouk with rude comments, which distract him and cause him to miss most of his shots. Anatole starts losing hope and calls Liesel over to tell her the story of her birth, explaining that he was the one who cut her umbilical cord. He regrets sending her to the convent, saying they brainwashed her into becoming religious, when his only goal was to keep her away from his sons. He also reveals she is named after his grandmother and was the only child he truly wanted to raise, but he wasn't able to. Then, Anatole challenges the brothers to one final shot. If Farouk makes it, they'll use the original contract, but the brothers will have to cover 10% of the gap. If he misses, Anatole will give them all the money he brought. The brothers accept the deal, and Liesel prays for Farouk, who, luckily, makes the shot. Later, Anatole has another vision of the afterlife, where he brings a deer carcass to his 3 wives. When he cuts the animal open, coins pour out. One of the wives then announces that Lear isn't his daughter. At that moment, Anatole wakes up on the plane and tells Lear she has his eyes. But when she looks at a picture of her uncle, she notices she has his eyes too. The phone rings. It's Bob, one of the project's business partners. Anatole lies and says the brothers agreed to cover the entire gap. Liesel scolds him for lying, but Anatole simply says he's doing a strategy. Suddenly, Bjorn finds a bomb that will explode in 18 minutes, but Anatole tells him to ignore it. They'll land in 10. That night, the group visits Bob's club. Anatole gives him a hand grenade as a gift, and Liesel drinks again. During dinner, Bob receives an anonymous letter trying to blackmail him into covering the rest of the gap. Bob recognizes Anatole's handwriting, and an argument begins. Anatole admits that the brothers and Farouk only agreed to cover a small portion of the gap. Their argument is interrupted when a guerrilla unit, led by Sergio, bursts into the club and opens fire to rob the guests. Bob confronts them, and they try to shoot him, but Anatole jumps in front of the bullet. Fortunately, papers in his coat slow the shot, and he survives. He tells Bob to remove the bullet and keep it. Impressed, Bob agrees to fund part of the gap. Sometime later, the group boards a ship to meet Captain Marty, another business partner. Marty knows about the gap and refuses to help, but Anatole claims he only came for a symbolic meeting and gives him a grenade. Suddenly, Anatole collapses from blood loss and has another vision of the afterlife. This time, a young Liesel speaks to the court about the night her mother died, and how her father told her she wouldn't live with them anymore. Anatole realizes he's on trial and wakes up to find a sailor performing a blood transfusion between him and Marty. Anatole starts telling Liesel new details about her mother. He says she had many lovers, including his brother Nubar, which made him angry. Anatole wrote a breakup letter to Nubar, pretending to be her, and claims she had fallen for the secretary. He believes this is what led Nubar to kill them both. When Liesel asks if Anatole loved her mother, he admits he didn't. He only cared for her. Liesel slaps him. Anatole apologizes, surprised when Liesel forgives him easily, saying she always expected the worst from him. Anatole then gives Marty a new proposal, but the captain throws it overboard. A heated argument follows, and Anatole pulls the pin from a grenade. The group laughs at the absurdity of the moment, and Marty ends up agreeing to help. Meanwhile, Excalibur receives another report on Anatole's movements, confirming there's a spy in his group. Later, Anatole meets with his second cousin, Hilda. He proposes to her but makes it clear that Liesel will remain his only heir. Hilda accepts the ring without giving an answer. She tells Liesel a story about how their grandfathers had a stupid argument that broke the family apart. Despite Anatole's begging, Hilda refuses to fund the gap. Liesel asks if she knows who killed her mother or if Nubar is her real father, but Hilda only knows the rumors. Back on the plane, Anatole opens a letter with an emergency directive. A parliamentary motion has been passed to stop him. He must be home with a notary by noon tomorrow, or face prison. As Anatole goes to speak with the pilot, Liesel hears Bjorn tapping his fingers and realizes it's Morse code. Before she can react, Anatole sets off the emergency alarm. The pilot has been poisoned. Anatole takes control of the plane, ejects the pilot, and soon a fighter jet appears and opens fire. The plane is hit and crashes in a forest. Everyone survives, but Bjorn's bag breaks open, revealing fake passports that expose him as Excalibur's spy. Bjorn drops his awkward persona and reveals himself as a trained agent. He says he never cared about Anatole and was just following orders. Anatole tries to attack him, but Bjorn easily overpowers him. Ashamed, Anatole walks away. Bjorn says he's willing to switch sides. He's fallen for Liesel. Suddenly, Anatole screams. They find him stuck in quicksand. He begs them not to help him, wanting to save himself, but Bjorn volunteers anyway. Anatole passes out and has another vision of the afterlife, this time asking God to be okay with slavery. When he wakes up, he realizes Bjorn saved him. He wonders how Bjorn passed the polygraph test. Bjorn explains that tricking it is easy. He was trained to do it. The trio spends the night in the wrecked plane, bonding over stories of their difficult childhoods. Liesel announces that she doesn't want to work with her father anymore and wants to return to the church. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. It's Sergio and his team. They take the trio back home in their plane. When they arrive, the Mother Superior is waiting. She tells Liesel she was never meant for religious life and dismisses her from the convent. Anatole thanks her with a donation for church repairs. He tells her about his visions and wonders if he should be baptized for a better afterlife. Then, he takes Liesel to a safe and makes her retrieve a box left by his father's notary. Anatole never opened it, and Liesel promises to do so later. During dinner, Anatole explains that the final investor meeting for the Phoenician scheme will be held at the Desert Palace Hotel, and he needs a new plan. He marries Hilda and gets baptized, hoping this, and baptizing his adopted sons, will convince the Pope to invest. He also has Bjorn introduce him to Excalibur and swears to his face that he won't let him win. Later, in the hotel elevator, Anatole, Liesel, Bjorn, and Sergio prepare for the meeting. Anatole recognizes the elevator operator as an assassin, but before anyone can react, the man takes poison and dies. Before going into the meeting room, Anatole asks Liesel if he can adopt her even if she's not his daughter. She says yes. Inside, they finally confront Nubar. He refuses Anatole's grenade gift. He already has one. Nubar says Liesel's mother did have an affair with the secretary, and that he is probably Liesel's real father, but he denies killing her. The brothers argue. Anatole uses the polygraph to prove he didn't kill any of his wives. Liesel opens the box from the safe. Inside are photos, letters, poison gas capsules, her grandfather's ashes, and a key. Nubar suddenly says he's quitting the project and only came out of curiosity. In the elevator, Anatole tells Liesel and Bjorn he's giving up the rest of his money to cover the gap, and will pay the workers too. Liesel is proud. She doesn't need a fortune. At the meeting, Anatole shares his big decision. Excalibur is secretly listening through a hidden microphone. The investors sign the papers, and Anatole shows them a small model of the project. But just then, a servant interrupts. Nubar wants to talk to him. In another room, Nubar says he's changed his mind and wants to do it himself. At first, Anatole thinks he's talking about the business deal, but then Nubar suddenly attacks and tries to choke him. They fight, rolling down the stairs and grabbing anything they can to use as weapons. Nubar throws a gas capsule at Anatole, but it just bounces off his head. Anatole catches it and throws it back before running away. Back in the meeting room, Nubar shows up again, this time on the project model. He's about to throw a grenade. Anatole begs him to stop. Nubar suddenly remembers his family and decides to use the grenade on himself, destroying the model too. In one last vision of the afterlife, Anatole and Liemsul gently place the ashes back in the safe. Later, Anatole lives a simple life with Liesel and all the boys, who now finally get real family love. Bjorn quits Excalibur and becomes a schoolteacher. Hilda cancels the marriage and opens her own camp. Anatole starts a restaurant, and Liesel works there as a waitress. When Hilda returns the ring, Bjorn uses it to propose to Liesel. After a long day, Anatole and Liesel enjoy a quiet evening playing cards. Liesel hopes the Phoenician scheme can still give people honest jobs. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.